Welcome back, children. So in today's chapter review, we'll be revising the concepts of ray optics. We know optics is classified into ray and wave. In ray optics, we'll be studying about reflection, refraction, dispersion and scattering, and end up the chapter with optical instruments. So in today's lecture, we'll be discussing about two concepts, reflection and refraction. We know the general characteristics of light, that it is a form of energy which excites our sense of vision. It is an electromagnetic wave which travels with 3 into 10 power 8 meter per second, has a wavelength ranging from 4000 to 7000 angstroms, composed of 7 colors with GR, and human eye is most sensitive to yellow-green light, whose wavelength is 5550 angstroms. To begin with reflection, we have studied the laws of reflection as the incident ray, normal and reflected ray lie in the same plane. If I, N and R represent incident ray, a vector in the direction of incident ray, N is a vector in the direction of normal, and R is a vector in the direction of reflected ray, as the three vectors are coplanar, you can represent this coplanarity in vectors by scalar triple product. So the scalar triple product of I, N and R should be 0, which can be expressed as R dot I cross N should be equal to N dot I cross R or I dot N cross R, but all of them will tend to become equal to 0. Second law says angle of incidence is equal to angle of reflection. If I cap, N cap and R cap are unit vectors in the direction of incident ray, normal and reflected ray, then I cross N should be equal to R cross N cap. Now one more way of representing the reflected ray, a unit vector along reflected ray, if you are given unit vector in the direction of incident ray. So if E1 is a unit vector along incident ray, E2 is a unit vector along reflected ray, we have expressed E1 and E2 in the direction of normal and tangent, and after subtracting and simplifying we get a relation which you need to remember. E2 vector, that is a unit vector along reflected ray, is always equal to E1 minus 2 times of E1 dot N into N cap. All of them are unit vectors. N cap is a unit vector in the direction of normal. So this helps you in finding out the direction of in the reflected ray or unit vector in the direction of reflected ray. Look at this example to understand how to apply the previous formula. So in the question, a ray of light is incident on a YZ plane, on a YZ plane mirror. Okay, that means the mirror is in YZ plane. So its normal will be in I cap direction, and the incident ray unit vector is represented as E1 equal to 1 by root 3 I cap plus 1 by root 3 J cap and 1 by root 3 K cap. And they are asking you to find out what is a unit vector along reflected ray. To get the unit vector along reflected ray, I will be making use of this relation. Okay, just now we have studied that E2 is equal to E1 minus 2 times of E1 dot N into N. First take the dot product between E1 and N. E1 is 1 by root 3 I cap plus 1 by root 3 J cap plus 1 by root 3 K cap dot I cap. We will get it as 1 by root 3. So once you know the dot product, substitute the values, you will get the value of E2. And now you can clearly see if the normal to the mirror is in I cap direction, in the reflected ray, only the direction of I component has reversed. See here the component of I was 1 by root 3 in the question, whereas in the reflected ray it has become minus 1 by root 3, whereas remaining two components were as it is. Therefore, what will be your equation for the reflected ray? E2 is equal to minus 1 by root 3 I cap plus 1 by root 3 J cap and plus 1 by root 3 K cap. Okay, this is how you can get the direction of the reflected ray by making use of this relation. Okay, look at one more question. Instead of one plane mirror, here we are given two plane mirrors. Okay, plane mirrors are combined to each other such that one of them is in YZ plane and other is in XZ plane. A ray of light is incident. Okay, the same incident ray is given. E1 is equal to 1 by root 3 I cap plus 1 by root 3 j cap plus 1 by root 3 k cap. Now just now I told you, if the mirror is in YZ plane, normal is along x axis. So the normal for the first mirror is in x direction. Normal for second mirror is in y direction. So you don't have to derive or use the formula again. We know whichever direction is normal to the mirror, that component will reverse the direction. So what should be your direction of the reflected ray? The reflected ray will be having a negative sign for I cap and a negative sign for j cap. So after inserting the negative sign, what will be your equation representing the reflected ray? Minus 1 by root 3 minus I cap minus 1 by root 3 j cap plus 1 by root 3 k cap. Okay, this is how you. Now look at this question. They have given a mirror and a man. The height of the man is 2 meter and height of the mirror is 0.5 meter. And it is also given that mass of the mirror is 0.1 kg. Initially, M and A are at the same level. And if M starts falling freely, remaining in vertical position, if the level of eyes of the man is 1.5 centimeter below, the time for after which the man sees the reflection of his feet is. Okay, try to understand the question first. Okay, they have given you that a mirror and man are at the same vertical position. This is the head of the man, A, and this is the top part of the mirror. Mirror is left to fall freely. And they are asking you for what time man would see his feet in this reflection. That means in the image. So first we'll make the ray diagram and then we will go for calculation. So if this AB is the height of the man. Okay, so this is the height of the man and his eyes are located at a distance 1.5 centimeter below the point A. So the remaining distance will be 198.5 centimeter. See, if this is your mirror XY and mirror starts falling. So with his eyes, he should be in a position to see his feet. If AB is the object, image is this one, A dash B dash, which is equidistant from the mirror. We know for mirror's object distance should be equal to image distance. So the distance from A to mirror should be same as distance from mirror to his image. And this is the feet of the person. So with his eyes, he should be in a position to see his feet. So this is possible until the mirror travels from Y to M. Okay, if mirror reaches this point M, he can see his feet. Beyond this point, he cannot see his feet. So we have to find out the time taken by the mirror to travel from Y to M. Okay, let us see how to calculate the time. Now by using the properties of triangles, see from this triangle E, B and B dash, this triangle, you can compare and write because PB distance is equal to P into B dash distance. This distance is equal to this distance. By comparing the bigger triangle and the smaller triangle, you can get the distance from M to P. M to P is half of 198.5 because these two are similar triangles. The distance from E to B by distance from M to P should be equal to B dash B by B dash P. Since B dash B and BP are the equal distances, that means B dash P is double of BP, we get M to P distance as 99.25. And once you get this MP distance, you can easily find the distance YM because the total distance from X to P is 200. So from 200, you will subtract the height of the mirror, that is 50, and you will subtract the distance MP, which is 99.25. we get the distance from y to m as 50.75. And once you get this distance, it's a freely falling body. S is equal to ut plus half at square. U is anyway 0. Half into acceleration, and it is 10. G value is taken as 10 into t square. And that will give you the time as 0.318. This is how you can find out the answer for this question. Now coming to few more points regarding plane mirrors. A very often given question is to find out the number of images when two mirrors are inclined at an angle. How do you find the number of images? First, we will find out the value of 360 by theta. If theta is the angle between the two mirrors, check whether it is even or odd. If it is an even number, the number of images is 360 by theta minus 1. If it is an odd number, now you have to check whether the object is on angular bisector or not. If the object is on angular bisector, number of images will be 360 by theta minus 1. If it is not on angular bisector, then it remains as 360 by theta. And sometimes if you get 360 by theta as an integer, then only take the number, the numerical part, and remove the decimal. Like if you get the answer as 3.5, the number of images should be considered as 3. Now let us look at one question to find out the number of images. So here we have already studied that when two mirrors are inclined at an angle, the images formed by these two mirrors will be on a circle. Now there are three mirrors given in the question: AB, BC and CA. Angle between any two mirrors is 60 degrees and object is at the center, that is on the angular bisector. So first let us look into only two mirrors and see how are the images formed. See, if I consider the mirror AB and AC, the number of images is 360 by 60, which is 6. And since it is an even number, we have to subtract 1. So the number of images formed will be equal to 5. So the set of two mirrors is forming 5 images. And look at those 5 images which are numbered as 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. All of them are on a circle. Similarly, even these two mirrors, BC and AC, also form 5 images. BC and BA also will form 5 images. But look at how are all those images. Out of 5 images, you can observe this is coinciding. 1 and 1 dash. This is a common image. Even 5 and I double dashes are also common. Here also 5 and 5 double dash or 5 dash, this is common because all of them have to lie on a circle. Out of 15 images, 3 of them are common. So what should be your answer for number of images? 5, each mirror is forming 5 images. 5 3 is 15. Out of them 3 are common, minus 3. So your answer should be 12. Okay, now coming to velocity of images in a plane mirror. Okay, when we study about velocities, be very careful whether the object is moving parallel or perpendicular to mirror. So first look at the first point. If object moves perpendicular to mirror, then velocity of image with respect to mirror should be minus of VO comma M. Okay, that is velocity of object with respect to mirror. To understand this, look at this case. If suppose there is an object O in front of a plane mirror and it moves perpendicular to mirror close to the mirror, then we know image will also move close to the mirror. So if object is moving in plus I cap direction, image is moving in minus I cap direction with the same speed. That is what the point is going to tell you. The first point says velocity of image with respect to mirror perpendicular to it should be equal to minus of velocity of object with respect to mirror again perpendicular to mirror. So we have rearranged this relation. You can write Vi comma M as Vig minus Vmo, relative velocity. Similarly, velocity of object with respect to mirror, I can write it as VO minus VM. Both of them are taken with respect to ground. So after simplifying, you can write velocity of image with respect to ground is velocity of object with respect to ground plus velocity of image with respect to ground divided by 2. Okay, remember this relation. Velocity of image with respect to ground is velocity of object with respect to ground plus velocity of image with respect to ground divided by 2. This is the case when object is moving perpendicular to mirror like this. Second case, if object moves parallel to mirror, think logically. This is your mirror. Object is moving upward. Image also moves upward with the same speed. So velocity of image with respect to mirror parallel to the mirror is equal to velocity of object with respect to mirror parallel to mirror. So two different conditions. Perpendicular to mirror, there will be a change in direction. Parallel to mirror, there won't be any change in direction. Now making use of this, let us solve one very simple question. Look at the first question. Object is moving with a speed 5 meters, but in this case mirror is also moving with a speed 1 meter per second. Okay, just now I told you, if object moves parallel to mirror, image also will move but in opposite direction. But these velocities we took with respect to mirror. So first find out what is velocity of image with respect to mirror should be equal to velocity of image with respect to object in opposite direction. So if I write it in the relative velocity concept, Vi minus Vm, Vi is velocity of image, minus Vm, Vm is the velocity of mirror. In your question, velocity of mirror is minus 1. If you want, you can give the direction as I cap. I did not give it. So Vi minus minus of 1 should be equal to minus 1. Velocity of object is 5 in positive direction. So VO value is 5. Substitute the values, we get velocity of image as minus 7 meter per second. What does that minus sign indicate? We took positive sign for I cap direction, negative sign for minus I cap direction. That is the one question which is related to acceleration. Instead of velocities, here they have asked you the relation between accelerations. Read the question carefully. There are two blocks, okay, which are connected to the plane mirrors. Okay, so A is a plane mirror, C is also a plane mirror. This part is mirror, again this part is mirror. And we have kept an object stationary. Object is not moving. And we know these two blocks are placed on frictionless surfaces. They're asking you to find out what is the acceleration of the two images formed on the two reflecting surfaces with respect to each other. Okay, so if this is falling down with A1 acceleration, if this block falls down with A2 acceleration, we want the acceleration of the two images, one image with respect to another. So just now we have seen that if object is stationary and mirror moves, then what is the speed of image with respect to ground equal to? It is double the speed of mirror. Okay, just now in the previous case we have studied for velocities. If you differentiate velocity, we get acceleration. So I took the same relation for speeds, but after differentiation you get this equation. Acceleration of image with respect to ground is acceleration of object with respect to ground. Here object is not accelerating, plus acceleration of image with respect to ground divided by 2. So from this relation you can get acceleration of image with respect to ground is twice acceleration of mirror with respect to the ground. So first I'll find out what is acceleration of mirror with respect to ground. See, we have already studied from Newton's laws of motion how to get the acceleration of the system. So first look at the left side block. With what acceleration is it falling down? Unbalanced force. What is the unbalanced force? 3 mg divided by sum of the masses. 3m plus m, that is 4m. M gets cancelled. What is the acceleration of the left block? It is 3g by 4. Similarly, you can get the acceleration of 2 mg. Okay, acceleration of this block. Similarly, you can get the acceleration of the right side block. Okay, how to get the acceleration? 2 mg, unbalanced force is 2 mg divided by sum of the masses. Sum of the masses is 3m. That is nothing but 2g by 3. So the left block is moving with 3g by 4 and right block is moving with a speed of, what is the speed we have got? 2g by 3. Okay, now we have got the acceleration of this block and we have even got the acceleration of 2 mg. Okay, 2 mg we have got it as 2g by 3. But just now I told you, what is the acceleration of image with respect to ground? Is it nothing but double of 3g by 4? Okay, when you double it, we get the acceleration of image with respect to ground for the left block. Similarly, acceleration of image with respect to ground for the right block is 2 times of 2g by 3, that is 4g by 3. Now we want relative acceleration. Since the mirrors are moving in opposite directions, relative acceleration will be a1 plus a2. So add the two accelerations, answer comes out to be 17g divided by 6. So instead of speeds, sometimes you may get even questions related to accelerations. Okay, now let us look at the formulas regarding spherical mirrors. Okay, I am not repeating what is pole, focus, all those things. You are all already familiar of them. Just let us look into formulas. For spherical mirrors, what is the formula for calculating the image distance? Mirror formula, 1 by f is equal to 1 by v plus 1 by u. And for all spherical mirrors, we know radius of curvature is double the focal length. R is equal to 2f. So in terms of radius of curvature, your mirror formula can be written as 2 by r is equal to 1 by v plus 1 by u. Now, hope you remember the sign convention. All the distances measured in the direction of incident ray. Okay, if this is your mirror and the principal axis, all the distances which are measured in the direction of incident ray are taken positive, opposite to incident ray are taken negative. So following those sign conventions, if object is real, that means you have kept an object in front of a mirror, this is the pole of the mirror, then we take u as negative. For real images, v is negative, because if you get the image real on the same side of the mirror, distance is with negative sign. Whereas for virtual object, if your object is here, then it is taken with positive sign, and for virtual image, v is positive. Okay, this is only a sign convention. Now come to magnification produced by spherical mirrors. But when you are talking about magnification, be very careful which magnification they are asking about. If it is transverse or lateral magnification for one-dimensional object, that means height of image is asked. So we know height of object by height of image is given by minus v by u. And if you express this, this is your formula for transverse magnification, minus v by u. If you expressed minus v by u in terms of focal length, this is very helpful formula. M is equal to f by f minus u. But when you are using this formula for numericals, don't forget to use the sign convention. Along with signs, you will have to substitute the values. Now, longitudinal magnification. Longitudinal magnification in the sense, sometimes they give you an object along the principal axis. Say object is placed like this. Length of the object is du for a concave mirror. Then they are asking you to find out the length of image. In such a case, we have to use the formula of longitudinal magnification. What is the formula for longitudinal magnification? dv by du. For small objects, it is applicable. If object is very long, then don't go for this relation. Take one end of the object as u, find out v. Another end of the object as object distance and find v. The difference in the two v's will give you the length of image. But if the object is small, okay, for small objects, dv by du. dv is the length of image, du is the length of object, is minus v square divided by u square. So this formula is applicable for longitudinal magnification. Now superficial magnification or aerial magnification, that is magnification of area. So when aerial magnification is asked, again two cases will arise. How did you keep the object with respect to principal axis? See, if you have kept the objects perpendicular to principal axis like in the first figure, height of the image, height of the object is h naught, width of the object is w naught. So we know just now we have studied height of image by height of object is minus v by u, or it is magnification, transverse magnification is m. So height of the object is magnified m times. Width is also magnified m times. So what should be the total magnification in the area? Area of image will be m into h naught into m into w naught, that is m square times the area of object. So if your object is perpendicular to principal axis, then aerial magnification is m square into area of object. But if suppose the object is placed parallel to principal axis like this, okay, like in the second case, okay, then you tell me what will be the width of the image. Okay, if you're talking about width, is it longitudinal magnification for w naught? So width will increase by m square times, height will increase by m times. So what is the increase in area? Again I'm repeating, w is parallel to principal axis. Since it is parallel to principal axis, w naught will become m times of m square times of w naught. Just now we have seen dv by du is equal to minus v square divided by u square. So since width is magnified m square times and height is magnified m times, so in such a case, what will be your magnification of area? It is not m square, it will become m cube times the area of object. So be careful when you are dealing with aerial magnification. Whether it is placed perpendicular to principal axis or along the principal axis will change your answer. Okay, look at volume magnification. Okay, look at the object. A three-dimensional object is placed. Let it be a cube. We have taken a cube in this case. Side is L0. Now, for L0, is L0 parallel to principal axis? If the length of the object is L0, length of the image, what will be the length of the image? M square times of L0. Now come to this area, the shaded portions area. If object has an area A0, it is perpendicular to principal axis. Image will have a value. What is the image area? M square into A0. So area is magnified M square times. Length is magnified M square times. What should be your volume magnification now equal to? Product of these two. That becomes M to the power 4. Don't make a mistake writing m cube. Magnification will be m to the power 4 times the volume of object. Okay, so this is all about magnification produced by spherical mirrors. Now observe the image formed by a concave mirror. A number of times we have seen, if you move the object from infinity towards the mirror, image will move away from the mirror. So if I divide this total regions into 4 parts, okay, observe the regions. From minus infinity to C, I took it as region 1, C and F region 2, F and pole is region 3, pole to infinity we took it as region 4. I have divided this whole principal axis into 4 regions. Okay, we know any object in first region will have its image in second region and vice versa. Okay, if object is beyond C, for a concave mirror, we know image is formed between C and F. Okay, so the same thing we have indicated in regions. Any object in region 1 will form an image in region 2. As long as objects and images are in region 1 and 2, they are real images and real objects. Similarly, if an object is in region 3, image will be in region 4 and vice versa. See, if I keep the object at a distance less than focus, we know image will be formed behind the mirror, which is virtual image. and this is interchangeable. If object is in region 3, image will be in region 4 and vice versa. So remember this condition for plotting the graphs. Okay, now look at it. What is the nature of U versus V graph for a concave mirror? Two graphs I have given. One is UV graph and the other one is 1 by U and 1 by V graphs. So when you practically do plot a graph for a concave mirror in your laboratory, we know we do it for real objects and real images. When object is real and image is real, U and V both are negative in case of concave mirror. So look at the nature of the graph. Okay, this is your line U representing U, and this is your y-axis representing V, U and V. Then what is the nature of the graph for real image and real object? It's a curve. Okay, this curve is going to give you the nature of graph. As U is increasing, V value will decrease. And if you plot the graph for real image and virtual object, or virtual image and real object, okay, it has to be plotted in the above quadrant. Okay, so this line is representing U versus V graph for virtual image and real object, and vice versa, real image and virtual object. Just now I told you region 3 and 4. This is for region 1 and 2. And if you plot a line V equal to U, this is your line which is representing V equal to U. It will intersect this U versus V graph at a coordinate minus 2f comma minus 2f. Okay, so this point you have to remember. Okay, when you have done the practical, 2f comma 2f is the point of intersection of V is equal to U line with UV graph. So based on this point, you can calculate the focal length of that particular mirror. And come to 1 by V versus 1 by U graph. Okay, the second graph, 1 by U is taken on x-axis, 1 by V on y-axis. Then the nature of the graph will be a straight line. Okay, so this is your line. Okay, which intersects the axis at minus 1 by f and minus 1 by f. Even in this, if you draw a line V is equal to U, what is the point of intersection? Minus 1 by 2f and minus 1 by 2f. Here the point of intersection is 2f comma 2f. In this case, it is minus 1 by 2f and minus 1 by 2f. Now similarly for a convex mirror, okay, this is important to do matching questions. So here also we have divided the regions into 4 parts, 1, 2, 3 and 4. Look at the regions. From plus infinity to C, I have taken this as region 1. Between C and F, region 2. Pole to focal length, region 3. And pole to minus infinity, all this is region 4. So let us see how the object and image positions are changing in various regions. See, any object in region 1 will have an image in region 2. If object is in region 1, it must be a virtual object behind the mirror. If I keep an object here, we cannot keep an object here. If you consider the rays coming from somewhere, a converging beam of light, it becomes a virtual image. So if object is in region 1, image will be formed in region 2 and vice versa. So if this is a virtual object in the first region, we get a virtual image in region 2. Okay, this is where you get the image, and vice versa. If object is in region 3, will have its image in region 4 and vice versa. If object is in region 3, this is the object, then image will be in region 4. Again, it's a virtual object, and vice versa. So if your object is in region 4, image will be in region 3. So 3 and 4 are interchangeable, 1 and 2 are interchangeable. So sometimes they ask you a question, can you have a virtual object and a virtual image for a convex mirror? It is possible. If object is between C and plus infinity, image will be between C and F, but both of them are virtual. So using that, if you plot a graph between U and V for a convex mirror, look at the two graphs for real objects and virtual objects. If object is real, then the nature of graph, okay, virtual image of a virtual object, real image of a virtual object. Here you have virtual image of a real object. Okay, this line is representing the virtual image for a real object. It is passing through the center and we are continuing this line. So the left, this part of the line or the curve will give you the nature of virtual image and real object. Only this part you can practically check. Remaining are the principle of reversibility. Real image and virtual object, this part, and this curve, upper graph, will give you virtual image of a virtual object. Okay, virtual image, virtual object, just now I told you it is possible in region 1 and 2. Similarly, 1 by u versus 1 by v graph will be a straight line which makes an intercept at 1 by f and 1 by f. Okay, now coming to speed of images in case of spherical mirrors. Again, when the object moves parallel to principal axis and perpendicular to principal axis, you have two different formulas. First, look at parallel to principal axis. This is the formula we have to use. For small speeds, if speed of image with respect to mirror parallel to principal axis, here it is not parallel to mirror, parallel to principal axis, should be minus v square by u square into v of o comma m. That means velocity of object with respect to mirror parallel to principal axis. So before we understand, look at these two diagrams. They are showing you the object. If object moves from minus infinity to c, this side, image will move from focus towards c. For a concave mirror, if object is moving from minus infinity towards c, image will move from focus towards c. That is 1 and 2 regions. Okay, here also I have represented as region 1, 2, 3 and 4. This is region 1. This is region 2. First let us concentrate on region 1 and 2. If object moves towards center of curvature, image will move from focus towards center of curvature. This is how object and images are moving. Second case, if object moves from focus towards the pole, that means in region 3. Image, we know within the focus, image is virtual. Image will move from minus infinity towards the center of the, towards the pole of the mirror. So two cases, object is moving towards C, image will move from F to C. Object moves from F to pole, image will move from plus infinity towards the pole. And how do we evaluate the magnitude? Magnitude is found by using this relation. Remember this. Velocity of image with respect to mirror parallel to principal axis is minus v square by u square for small speeds. For a concave mirror, let us see how will the object and image move. If object moves from minus infinity towards the pole of the mirror, this side, then image is moving from F towards the pole. We have only one position where you can place a real object, that is anywhere in between minus infinity to P. Then image will be moving from F to P. Okay, that will be in region 3. Now, previously we have discussed what would be the speed if it is moving parallel to principal axis. But if it moves perpendicular to principal axis, okay, very rarely you get the questions where object is moving perpendicular to principal axis also. Even if given, it is not difficult to find. Okay, when you differentiate the magnification formula, height of image by height of object is V by U or minus V by U for spherical mirrors, dhi by dt by dh naught by dt. After differentiating this, okay, we are going to get this formula. Velocity of image with respect to mirror is m. M is magnification, which is f by f minus u, into velocity of object with respect to mirror plus h naught into dm by dt. Okay, dm by dt you have to calculate separately because m is f by f minus u. When you differentiate it, F is constant, U is variable. You can find the value of dm by dt. So look at the two cases. If they give you an object on the principal axis and it is moving upward with 5 meter per second. Since object is on the principal axis, what is h naught equal to? Here h naught is the height of the object above the principal axis. Since the object is on the principal axis, what will be the value of h naught? I repeat, this h naught is the height of object above the principal axis. Since the object is lying, the foot of the object is on the principal axis, h naught is 0 in this case. In most of the cases, they will give you h naught as 0. If h naught is 0, you don't have to evaluate this part. So we will only get this part of the formula. Velocity of image with respect to mirror is m into velocity of object with respect to a mirror. So take care while solving the question. So to look at the two types. In the first type, foot of the object is on principal axis, so h naught is 0. And it is moving vertically upward. That means it's moving perpendicular to principal axis. Parallel to mirror and perpendicular to principal axis. In case 2, this is your object. And object is moving horizontally above the principal axis, and this distance is given as 2 centimeter. Since the distance is 2 centimeter, here h naught is 2 centimeter. Whereas it is moving parallel to principal axis. Since it's moving parallel to principal axis, what is the value of dh naught by dt equal to? 0. So in this case, VOM is 0. It's not moving perpendicular to principal axis. It's moving parallel to principal axis, but at a height h naught equal to 2 centimeter. So let us look at one example to understand how to apply the two formulas. Okay, I again repeat. One formula, if it is moving parallel to principal axis, is minus v square by u square into velocity of object. For perpendicular to principal axis, we will be using this relation. So to understand, observe this question. See, I have given you an object O, which is moving with a speed 5 meter per second towards a concave mirror whose focal length is 30 centimeter. Object distance is given 20 centimeter. And mirror is at rest. Mirror is not moving. So the first two formula. First find out what is m. We know magnification is f by f minus u. I told you, you have to use the sign convention even while you are using this relation. Focal length is minus 30, u is minus 20. Put the values, you get magnification as 3. And how is the object moving? It is moving along the principal axis, parallel to principal axis. Then what is the speed of image formula? Speed of image with respect to mirror. Since mirror is not moving, speed of mirror is 0. It's minus of v square by u square whole square into, or minus v square by u square into 5. Already you have got this value as plus 3. So your answer is minus of 3 square into 5, which is minus 45. Minus indicates it is, the image is moving in the negative direction. See, if object is moving towards the mirror, what is the direction in which image is moving? Away from mirror. Can you look at the second example? So in the previous case, object was moving parallel to principal axis. In this case, I have taken the object moving perpendicular to principal axis. And because object is on the principal axis, okay, you can observe this. The foot of the object is lying on the principal axis. What is the value of h naught equal to 0? Since h naught is 0, when you use this formula for a body moving perpendicular to principal axis, h naught is 0, so dm by dt will obviously, h naught into dm by dt, this term will be lost. So what is the speed of image with respect to mirror equal to? M into speed of object with respect to mirror. Find the value of m. F by f minus u. By using the sign convention, we have got m as minus 2. So if m is minus 2, what is the speed of image with respect to mirror? Minus 2 into speed of object with respect to mirror is plus 5. Upward it is plus 5. So 5 into minus 2, your answer will be minus 10. In the sense, if object moves upward, image is moving downward. So this is how, if the object moves perpendicular to principal axis, we will have to make use of this relation. If the object moves parallel to principal axis, it is minus v square by u square into speed of object. Okay, now look at the third question. Okay, in this question, where is the object? It is at a height of 2 centimeter and moving horizontally. So in such a case, let us see how to get the speed. Now we will have to take two velocities, one parallel to principal axis, another should be perpendicular to principal axis. For parallel to principal axis, calculate the magnification first. M is equal to 3. Magnification is plus 3. So we know velocity of image parallel to principal axis is minus of v square by u square into velocity of object parallel to principal axis. What is the velocity of object parallel to principal axis? 10. So minus of m square. Okay, m square value, I think there should be a minus sign here, right? There is a minus sign. M square, m is 3. 3 square is 9 into 10. What is the speed? Minus 90. So we have got the speed along x-axis. X component, we have already got the answer. Now for y component. So when you are going for y component, the object is not on the principal axis. It is at a height of 2 centimeter from the principal axis. So what should be the value of h naught? The value of h naught is 2 centimeter. So h naught value we know, m value is 3. Okay, now I am making use of this formula. So dm by dt, I told you have to calculate this value of dm divided by dt. Okay, dm by dt is obtained by differentiating this relation. Differentiate the relation and then substitute the value. You will get dm by dt as minus 3 into 10 power 2 per second. And m value is already 3. And look at this term, velocity of object with respect to mirror perpendicular. We don't have any velocity in this direction. Perpendicular to mirror, we don't have any component of velocity. So in such a case, this term will become 0. So I have put that value as 0. h naught is 2 centimeter. dm by dt is 3 into 10 power minus 2, that too with minus sign. So when you multiply both of them, you will get velocity of image with respect to mirror as minus 6. So along y-axis, speed is 6. Along x-axis, it is minus 90. Put together, what will your answer be? Minus 90 I cap, minus 6 j cap. So this is how, depending on the question, okay, you will have to solve and find out both components of velocities. Okay, now let us see one more question where two mirrors are used, a plane mirror and a convex mirror. What is the question? An object O is placed in front of a small plane mirror M1 and a large convex mirror M2 of focal length f. The distance between object and M1 is x and the distance between M1 and M2 is given as y. See, in the question they have given you x and y. X is the distance between object and mirror. Between the mirrors the distance is y. Then the image of O formed by M1 and M2 has to coincide. What should be the focal length of mirror? So they are asking you the image formed by M1 and image formed by M2 has to coincide. So let's see how to solve this question. First, let us start with mirror M1. It's a plane mirror. For a plane mirror, if object is at a distance x, where should the image also be at? Same distance. So already M1 to M2 distance is y. So remaining distance should be what? The remaining distance should be x minus y. So for this object O, we are getting the image as I1. Distances should be same with respect to mirror. So if this distance is x, image also should be at the same distance, that is x. So therefore we have got the distance from M2 to image as x minus y. Now for the convex mirror, okay, for this convex mirror, object is at a distance x plus y. Image should be at a distance x minus y. Use the mirror formula now. 1 by x plus, 1 by v plus 1 by u should be equal to 1 by f. Anyway, object distance is taken with negative sign. So, substitute in your mirror formula, then you can get the focal length as x square minus y square by 2y. Okay, so it's a simple question where the two images have to coincide. So this is all about reflection, what we have studied. Now come to refraction. Okay, in refraction also we have studied two laws of refraction. One is called Snell's law and the other one is called the coplanarity condition. Incident ray, normal and refracted ray lie in the same plane. If I express them in vector form, the scalar triple product of I, N and R should be 0. Then coming to Snell's law, if light ray is traveling from a medium mu1 to mu2, mu1 into sin I should be equal to mu2 into sin R. And how is refractive index related to speed? We know it is inversely related to speed. Denser the medium, lesser will be the speed of light. So mu1 by mu2 is v2 by v1. If you express Snell's law also in terms of vectors, then if I cap, n cap and r cap represent unit vectors in the direction of incident ray, normal and the refracted ray, then mu1 into I cross n should be mu2 into n cross r. Okay, this is how you can also write this law in vector form. Okay, now come to refraction at plane surface. In refraction at plane surfaces, we have studied what is apparent depth of a coin placed inside water. Okay, for apparent depth. Then what is the height of a bird as seen by the fish and fish as seen by the bird. For all such questions, remember these two formulas. When the observer is in the rarer medium, say if I take mu1 as the rarer medium, apparent depth is equal to real depth by mu21. Whereas if observer is in denser medium, say a fish is observing a bird, then apparent height is h real into mu21. So one is divided by mu21, another is multiplied with mu21. So based on this you get some applications. Okay, look at how to solve the questions when you have number of mediums. Okay, say I have taken different thicknesses, T1, T2, T3 and T4 represent thicknesses of different medium. And what is their refractive indices? Mu1, Mu2, Mu3 and Mu4. See, I have taken 4 different materials of different refractive index and different thicknesses placed one upon the other. There is an object below this at a distance y and observer is watching it from the top. And now they will ask you what is the apparent height of the object or apparent position of the object as seen by the observer. For solving this type of questions, remember this general relation. Okay, instead of studying at each interface and calculating, okay, to get the answer quickly, you can make use of this equation. H apparent is always equal to this formula I am telling you, the refractive index in which the observer is present. See, observer here is in the medium mu naught. Write the equation, the refractive index of the medium in which observer is present, mu naught multiplied with sigma of hi by mu I. Okay, expand it. If I start from the position of observer till I reach the object, first I am covering a distance x in the medium mu naught. So h apparent is equal to mu naught into the medium in which observer is present, open the bracket, x1 by mu naught plus, next I am entering a medium mu1 whose thickness is t1. So t1 by mu1, t2 by mu2, t3 by mu3 until you reach the observer. This will give you the apparent distance. Apparent distance, again I am repeating the formula. Remember this relation, mu naught, that is the medium, refractive index of the medium in which observer is present, open the bracket and write sigma of thicknesses by refractive indices until you reach the object. Then that will give you the apparent distance. So here real distance is x plus y plus t1 plus t2 plus t3 plus t4. But apparent distance is given by the block or the above relation. Okay, coming to lateral shift. Okay, when you incident a light ray through a thick glass slab whose thickness is t, we know we have derived this relation. What is the formula for lateral shift? D is equal to t into sine of I minus r by cos r. I is the angle of incidence, this is the angle of incidence, and r is the angle of refraction. Okay, if they give you refractive index of the material, you can find out the value of r using Snell's law. Then coming to total internal reflection. When does a light ray undergo total internal reflection? While traveling from a denser to rarer medium, only if angle of incidence is greater than critical angle. And what is the relation between critical angle and refractive index? Sin C is equal to 1 by mu 2 1, or sin C is equal to mu of rarer medium by mu of denser medium. And here for total internal reflection, we have to remember the formula of deviation. Deviation has two values. Okay, before total internal reflection, deviation is different, and once total internal reflection occurs, deviation will be different. So look at this diagram. In this diagram, what is deviation? An incident ray is traveling from a denser to rarer medium, and if the angle is less than critical angle, it will undergo refraction. Since it's undergoing refraction, the deviation will be, it is supposed to come out with an angle alpha, but it is coming out making an angle beta. Okay, so then deviation delta is equal to beta minus alpha. Again I repeat, light ray is supposed to emerge straight without any bending. Because it is bending, the angle between these two rays, we call it as deviation. So what is deviation here written as? Beta minus alpha. Beta is the total angle made by the refracted ray with normal, and alpha is the angle of incidence. So what is deviation in such a case? Beta minus alpha. So using Snell's law, if I write beta as sine inverse of mu sine alpha, then your formula for deviation will be in terms of angle of incidence alpha, as shown in this equation, sine inverse of mu sine alpha minus alpha, and it is a non-linear equation which increases with alpha. And since it is a non-linear increasing equation, if alpha becomes critical angle, here theta c is the critical angle, then angle of deviation would be 90 minus theta c. Again I repeat, angle of deviation will be pi by 2 minus theta c if alpha becomes equal to theta. And for any angle greater than critical angle, the light ray is going to come back to the same medium. Okay, since it's undergoing total internal reflection, look at the graphical variation now. How is total internal reflection, how is angle of deviation varying with alpha? Because after total internal reflection, it obeys the laws of reflection, not the laws of refraction. So look at the graph. As angle of incidence in the denser medium is gradually increased from 0 to theta c and above. From 0 to theta c, what is happening to deviation? It is first increasing non-linearly till pi by 2 minus theta. For any angle above this, it will undergo total internal reflection. So the deviation will become pi minus 2 theta, and then it decreases. One is a linearly increasing function, other is a linearly decreasing function. Till here it is undergoing refraction. Beyond theta c it will undergo reflection. So this graph indicates how deviation changes with angle of incidence for a light ray traveling from a denser to a rarer medium. Okay, remember this graph. And sometimes they ask you what is the maximum deviation produced. Look at which is maximum among these two values, pi minus 2 theta c. Okay, that is critical angle. Okay, now look at one simple application. This is a very often given question. At what distance will the bird appear to the fish and at what distance will the fish appear to bird. Just now I gave you one general formula, make use of that. Okay, so let us start with the first one. Height of bird with respect to fish. Okay, I am evaluating the height of bird with respect to fish. So who is the reference point? Fish. Fish is observing the bird. Start from fish. Which medium is the fish in? Water, 4 by 3. See, I have written the relation mu naught. That means 4 by 3 into h1 by mu1 plus h2 by mu2. Because we are finding out the position of the bird with respect to fish, start from fish. 4 by 3 is the medium in which fish is present. Refractive index of water is 4 by 3. So h1, 36 by 4 by 3, 36 by 1. Okay, make use of the formula mu naught into h1 by mu1 plus h2 by mu2 until you reach your destination. So fish has to reach the bird. 4 by 3 is the medium in which fish is present. h1 by mu1 plus h2 by mu2. Answer comes 84. Now reverse. If bird is observing the fish, so h of fish with respect to bird. Who is observing now? Bird is the observer and object is fish. Start from the observer. Medium in which observer is present is 1. So 1 into my second formula. 36 by 1 divide plus 36 by 4 by 3. Okay, sometimes instead of asking you apparent positions, they may give you the speed of bird and the fish, and you will be asked to find the speed of bird as seen by the fish and vice versa. So in such a case, first you write the equation for apparent position and differentiate the relation. See, first I have given an example here. Bird is moving down with 6 cm per second. Fish is moving up with 4 cm per second. We want the speed of bird as seen by the fish and speed of fish as seen by the bird. Okay, let us take the first bit. I am finding out apparent position of fish with respect to bird. Who is the observer? Bird is the observer. So start writing the apparent distance. H of fish with respect to bird is, from bird to water it is x. Bird is in medium of refractive index 1. So 1 into, I have written this relation. X plus remaining distance is y. Refractive index in which the fish is present is 4 by 3. Okay, just now I gave you mu naught into h1 by mu1 plus h2 by mu2 formula I have applied. Now differentiate this relation. The differential of h dhf p by dt will give you the speed of fish with respect to bird. Okay, because hfb is the apparent distance of fish with respect to bird. dh by dt will give you the speed of fish with respect to bird. Now look at dx by dt. dx by dt is the speed of bird with respect to water. Okay, or with respect to ground. See, what is the speed of bird with respect to ground? It's given as 6 in the downward direction. Since it is downward, the value of x is decreasing with time. If x decreases with time, we use a minus sign. If it increases with time, we use a plus sign. So what is dx by dt value? Minus 6 plus 3 by 4 into dy by dt. Observe dy by dt. What is happening to y also when the fish is moving? It is decreasing. Since y is decreasing, x is also decreasing. Both are decreasing. Your answer comes out to be minus 9 meter per second. But this is only one part of the question. It is the speed of fish with respect to bird. The other part you try. You try to find out what is apparent position of bird with respect to fish and then differentiate the relation. If x is decreasing, it will have negative sign. If it is increasing, you will have to take positive sign. Okay, now look at this question where refractive index is not constant, it is variable for an anisotropic medium. Okay, since the medium is anisotropic, we know for any medium, mu sine theta is constant. Mu1 sine theta 1 should be equal to mu2 sine theta 2. And in this question, they said that light ray is entering along y-axis. So if it is entering along y-axis, this is your normal. Angle of incidence is 90 degrees. So mu naught into sine 90. Okay, in the first medium, mu naught into sine 90 should be mu 2 into sine theta. Okay, how to get this value of theta? Since the light ray is bending, draw a tangent. Angle made by the tangent with x-axis will give you the angle of refraction. So when we have got this angle of refraction as theta here, but mu is given as mu naught root 1 plus x as per the question, where mu naught is the refractive index of air. So I have written the condition mu 1 sine theta 1 should be equal to mu 2 sine theta 2. At x equal to 0, mu is equal to mu naught. That means below this medium, I have taken the refractive index as mu naught. Now from here, what did we get sine theta as? 1 by root over x plus 1. And we know the slope of this curve, tan theta is dy by dx, because they are asking you to find the equation of the ray. Equation of the ray is a relation between y and x. To get the relation between y and x, we have got the value of sine theta, and we know slope is equal to tan theta. So find out dy by dx is equal to, if sine theta is 1 by root over 1 plus x, you can find out what is tan theta by making a triangle. Okay, sine theta is opposite by hypotenuse 1 plus x. So find out the adjacent side. Okay, then you can find the value of tan theta. Okay, from there you will get dy by dx as 1 by root x. And once you get dy by dx as equal to 1 by root x, okay, you can integrate the relation and get the equation between y and x as y is equal to 2 root x. Okay, now coming to refraction at spherical surfaces. First, look at the formulas that you need to remember for studying refraction at spherical surfaces. Whenever refraction occurs at spherical surface, object is in mu1 and image is in the medium mu2. Then mu2 by v minus mu1 by u will always be equal to mu2 minus mu1 by r. And this is without any sign convention. When you are doing the numericals, make use of the proper sign convention. Then here also questions of magnification. Okay, if you have kept an object of height AB and the image formed is of height A dash B dash, then magnification, height of image by height of object A dash B dash by AB is given by the relation mu1 by mu2 into V by U. Okay, it's obtained by comparison of triangles for small values. Anyway, whatever we are doing in this chapter, those assumptions are true. Aperture of the mirrors is small, rays are close to principal axis, and then lenses and mirrors are thin. Okay, we are not taking thick lenses, thin lenses. So what is the formula for linear magnification here? For spherical surfaces, height of image by height of object is mu1 by mu2 into V by U. For longitudinal magnification means dV by du. If your object is along the principal axis of a spherical surface, say I have given you a spherical surface and object is placed parallel to principal axis, then the length of image dV is obtained by the formula L is equal to, that means dV by du is equal to V square by mu square into mu1 by mu2. Okay, remember this relation also. Length of image by length of object is mu1 by mu2 into V square by U square for spherical surfaces. Now first and second focus. Okay, the meaning of first focus is, okay, when you have a spherical surface, where should you keep the object so that the rays will become parallel? Okay, if I have kept the object at f1, after passing through the spherical surface, they should emerge parallel. So make use of the spherical surface formula. You will get the first focus as f1 is equal to minus of mu1 r by mu2 minus mu1. Similarly, second focus. Okay, here in the diagram I have shown you second focus. A parallel beam is incident, it is converging at second focus. Then mu2 r by mu2 minus mu1 will give the formula for second focus. First focus is minus of mu1 r by mu2 minus mu1. Second focus is mu2 r by mu2 minus mu1 for this given surface. Okay, remember these relations regarding focals, first and second focus. The sum of first and second focus will be equal to radius of curvature, or f1 by mu1 plus f2 by mu2 is equal to 0. This is called the Gauss law in spherical surface. And power of a spherical surface is mu2 minus mu1 by capital R. Okay, power is actually mu1 by f1 or mu2 by f2. If you eliminate f1 and f2 by using above two relations, you will get the power as mu2 minus mu1 by capital R. Okay, so these are formulas, and based on these formulas directly they'll ask you calculate the power of a spherical surface or find out the first focus and second focus and so on. Okay, now coming to lenses. Okay, we have different types of lenses, convex, concave and so on. It's obtained by combining two surfaces. It's obtained by binding two surfaces. One of them should be spherical surface. So regarding lenses, what are the formulas you need to remember? Lens formula, 1 by v minus 1 by u is equal to 1 by f. For transverse magnification, that is height of image by height of object placed perpendicular to principal axis, is v by u. And lens maker's formula is 1 by f is equal to mu2 by mu1 minus 1 into 1 by r1 minus 1 by r2. For longitudinal magnification, again dv by du, just like a spherical surface, is v square divided by u square, okay, which is square of magnification. Now here remember these 2 points. Generally we always are given medium on either side of the lens as same. But if medium on either sides of the lens is different, say look at the first figure, on the left side of the lens refractive index is mu1, right side of the lens refractive index is mu2. The lens is made up of a material whose refractive index is mu3. So in such a case, how do we find the power? Just now for a spherical surface, I gave you the formula for power. It's mu2 minus mu1 by r. Now there are two such surfaces. So write the relation in succession. First the ray is traveling from mu1 to mu2, then from mu2 to mu3. So what will be the power? Mu2 minus mu1 by radius of curvature of the first surface. Okay, this is your first surface. And then second surface. So apply the formula twice. This is your first surface and second surface. Light ray is entering from mu1 to mu2, then mu2 to mu3. So what will be the power? Mu2 minus mu1 by r1 plus mu3 minus mu2 to mu2 by r2. And I have used the sign convention. R1 is positive, R2 is negative. For this lens, R1 is positive, R2 is negative. Similarly for the second lens. But for the second lens, remember R1 is negative, R2 is positive. Radius of curvature of this surface is negative. Whereas for this surface, radius is positive. So use the sign convention and find the answer. Okay, look at the UV graph for a convex lens. Okay, hope you remember the ray diagrams for convex lenses. For a convex lens, as the object approaches the lens from minus infinity, image will approach the lens from plus infinity. So based on that, I have given you V versus U graph for real image and a real object. Okay, for real image and real object, this will be the line. And for real image virtual object or virtual image real object, it will be below. Okay, the second graph shows you for real image and virtual object, but upper graph is for real image and real object. Similarly, for a concave lens also, the graph is shown. We know concave lens will form a virtual image for a real object. So the nature of the graph will be a curve. This is your graph for real image and virtual object, virtual image and real object. Okay, now coming to questions related to speed of image in case of lenses. We have studied the speed of image in case of mirrors and then for spherical surfaces. Now coming to our lenses, when object moves parallel to principal axis, then speed of image with respect to lens is v square by u square into speed of object with respect to lens. But if it is moving perpendicular to principal axis, remember the second formula, okay, just like we have done in case of mirrors, it is m into speed of object with respect to lens plus h naught. H naught is the height of the object above the principal axis into dm by dt. And hope you remember magnification for lenses is v by u. Okay, now here onwards I will just tell you all the important formulas regarding the lenses. Okay, when you have thin lenses, okay, remember what is the assumption we have to take when we deal with lenses or with spherical surfaces. Lens should be thin, incident rays should be close to principal axis, aperture should be small. Same rules are applicable even for mirrors. So for thin lenses, the equivalent or combination of focal length, total focus will be 1 by f1 plus 1 by f2. Okay, positive focus in case of convex lens, and focal length will be negative for a concave lens. Coming to the Newton's formula, if x and y represent the object and image distances from the focus, again I repeat, x is the object and object distance from focus, y is the image distance from focus, then focal length is equal to square root of. Okay, now coming to lens displacement formula. So in this method for calculating the focal length of the lens, we keep the distance between object and the screen fixed. Okay, if object is at this particular position and this is your screen, capital D is the distance between them. Now start moving the lens from object towards the screen. At two different positions we get image on the screen. When object is at, when the lens is at this position, we get a magnified image I1. Again, when you move the lens to a new position L2, we get a diminished image, that is I2. So find out the distance between the two positions of the lens where you have got a clear image on the screen, and that distance is x. If you know x and capital D, you can find out its focal length by using the relation f is equal to d square minus x square by 4d. So they'll give you capital D as well as x, and capital D should be generally greater than 4 times the focal length of the lens. Only then your images will be real and formed on the screen. Apart from this, few more formulas which you have to remember here. Okay, product of magnifications will always be 1. M1 and M2, magnification in first position into magnification in second position, will always be equal to 1. And from there you can get the object size as square root of I1 into I2. Next is M1 by M2 is equal to I1 divided by I2. I1 is the height of the first image, I2 is the height of second image. Then difference in magnifications, M1 minus M2 is related to focal length by this relation. F is equal to x by M1 minus M2. And if a lens is cut, then how do we identify the number of images? See, in the first case, lens is made up of 4 different materials in horizontal section. So if a lens is along the horizontal section, number of images is equal to number of materials. Okay, hope you remember when you cut a lens. If this is your lens, along the principal axis, focal length will remain same. But if you cut a lens perpendicular to principal axis, if this is your lens and you're cutting it this way, each part will have a focal length double the focal length of previous. But here I am giving you different materials for different materials of a lens. Okay, the first lens is made up of 4 different materials. So this part of the lens will behave as one lens, second one as another, middle one as third lens, and fourth lens. So we get 4 images. Whereas in the second case, okay, this portion of the lens will behave as one lens. mu2 and mu4 together will behave as one lens. It's like 2 thin lenses in contact. This will behave as another lens. So the number of images in this case will be equal to 3. So coming to silvering of lenses. Okay, when we are dealing with silvering of lenses, so I have given you a plano-convex lens. Plane surface is being silvered. We know light ray, when it is passing through this system, will undergo 3 phenomena. First it passes through a lens, followed by a plane mirror, then again emerges from a lens. So there are two refractions and one reflection which is going to take place. Since we have two refractions and one reflection, the total power will be 2 times the power of lens plus power of mirror. So we know how do we calculate the power of a lens? By making use of lens maker's formula. And power of a plane surface is 0. Okay, for a plane mirror, power is 0. Substitute the values, you will get the equivalent power. And after you get the equivalent power, reverse of this will give you focal length of the mirror, because this whole system will behave like a mirror since the rays are retracing their path. So what is the focal length of the mirror? Give a minus sign, it's r by 2 into mu minus 1. Okay, and you will always use mirror formula, not the lens formula after silvering a lens. Okay, now look at this question which is based on refraction at spherical surface. Okay, we have a sphere whose radius of curvature is given as 20 centimeter. An object of height 1 centimeter is placed inside it. Okay, this is an object which is of height 1 millimeter. Okay, at a distance 30 centimeter from A. And observer is outside the sphere. They are asking you to find out the position, size and nature of image. So we know refraction at spherical surface formula. Object is in the denser medium, observer is in the rarer medium. So we know N2 by V or mu2 by V minus mu1 by U is mu2 minus mu1 by capital R. All the values are given with sign convention. Object distance is minus 30. Okay, and radius of curvature is minus 20 because ROC is given as 20. All the distances measured in the direction of incident ray are positive. Opposite to incident ray are negative. So here incident ray is coming from the object towards left. So O to C, the object distance, or O to A to C, the radius of curvature is taken with minus sign. U is also negative. N1 and N2 are already given. Substitute the values, you will get the value of V. And after getting the value of V, I gave you the formula for magnification. Height of image by height of object is N1 by N2, mu1 by mu2 into V by U. What is the height of image coming out to be? 4 centimeter. Okay, let us look into applications of refraction at spherical surface. Now in this question, the mediums are different. Okay, light rays traveling from air to glass and glass to water. An object is placed at a distance O in front of a thin pano-convex lens. Radius of curvature is 10. If the refractive index is 3 by 2 and the medium towards right of the plane mirror is water having a refractive index 4 by 3. What should be X? So that the rays become parallel. That means after 2 refractions, the rays have to emerge parallel. So when you apply the refraction at spherical surface formula twice and add the relations, your formula gets modified like this. Mu3 by V minus mu1 by U is equal to mu2 minus mu1 by R1 plus mu3 minus mu2 by R2. Since it is passing from mu1 to mu2, again from mu2 to mu3. Substitute the values. Since image should be at infinity, we took V as infinity. U is what you have to calculate, which is taken as X. So substitute the values in this relation, you will get X as minus 20 centimeter. Now questions where lenses and mirrors are combined. Okay, so here they have given you a lens followed by a convex mirror. An object is placed at 15 centimeter from a convex mirror of focal length 10 centimeter. On the other side of the lens, a convex mirror is placed at its focus such that the image formed by the combination coincides with the object. Okay, whenever you get this condition, image and object have to coincide. That means the rays have to retrace their path. So when is the retracing of path possible? The rays emerging from the lens should intersect at center of curvature of the mirror. Again, I am repeating, rays will retrace provided the ray which is emerging from the lens, if it forms its image at the center of curvature of a mirror, then the rays are having a probability of retracing. So using this condition, make use of the lens formula for the lens. Object is placed at a distance of minus 15 centimeter. U is minus 15, focal length is plus 10. Find the value of V. We have got the value of V as 30 centimeter. So that 30 centimeter should be the distance where image is formed. Look at the second diagram. What should be that 30 centimeter equal to? Distance between lens and the mirror plus distance from mirror to center of curvature. That is 2f plus 10 should be equal to 30. Since we need to find out the focal length of the concave mirror. So what is 2f equal to? 10, or f is equal to 2f will be equal to 20, so f will be equal to 10 centimeters.